everyone feeling after lunch? Yeah? Still have some energy left? Good. So, as Emma said, I personally believe everything we're talking about today is important, but maybe the most important bit is coming up for me to share with you in the next 10 or 15 minutes. You see, self-worth, this is the aspect of emotional intelligence which I believe to be the most important. Without this, everything else falls apart. What is it? Let's define it. How much do you like, value, accept yourself as a person? How comfortable are you in your own skin? How much are you accepting the level of okayness you have in the world? You see, all your self-worth is a mixture of all the beliefs you have about yourself. So we have, as I said earlier today, we have thousands of beliefs. Some of them are about what's right and wrong in the world. Some of them are about other people. But a lot of the beliefs you have are about you. I'm a good mother, I'm a bad mother. I'm a caring teacher, I'm an uncaring teacher. I'm a happy person, I'm a sad person. There are hundreds of them. And if you put all of those beliefs into a pot, then the sum total of that is your self-worth. So if you have lots of positive beliefs about yourself, you have high self-worth. If you have lots of negative, critical, unfair, pessimistic beliefs about yourself, you have low self-worth. Did you ever have any lessons in self-worth when you were a child studying at school? Was it a subject on the agenda? Today, children, we're going to talk about how you can learn to respect yourself more. I didn't. We don't teach it, right? But we should. Because I think if you guys as teachers could give a gift more important than any other gift to the children, it would be helping them and guiding them to know how to manage and form beliefs that will give them high self-worth in life. It's right there at the bottom. It's the foundation of what I call self-leadership, intrapersonal intelligence. How can you ever be a great leader of yourself if you don't respect yourself? And the great news is, as I said earlier, the more you learn to respect yourself, the more space you have to not judge others and to respect them. So it's a win-win. You see, if you don't have all of your own issues, if you don't worry about how you look, what other people think of you, are you too fat, are you too thin, are you intelligent, are you dumb, if you don't worry about these things, and you're realistically happy with how you are, that's strengths and faults, because nobody's perfect, but you accept them, then you've got so much more space and energy to give to others. So automatically your respect for others will grow. I have no doubt that you in this room have high respect for others. Otherwise, I wouldn't imagine you'd be interested in teaching. If you don't care about people, if you don't care about children, how can you be a good teacher? So I'm pretty sure if we looked at all of your emotional intelligence profiles, that we would find very high average scores of respect for others. How about respect for yourself? Did somewhere along the way you get attacked by one too many parents, being unfairly critical, blaming you, as the young lady here said, for all of the problems that seem to happen with their children? Did nobody ever praise you and share with you why they value you as a person when you were a child? See, we need both. We need both. About 13, 14 years ago, I went on my first emotional intelligence training course. It's when I first discovered it. and I met a guy called Tim Sparrow. He's retired now, but he was the guy that really taught me about emotional intelligence. He's a phenomenally intellectually and emotionally intelligent man. He has would you believe, 5 master's degrees, psychology, anthropology, you name it, this guy is qualified. But actually, what he told me, and I'm about to share with you on this slide, was a life-changing moment for me. It really was. Because I really didn't quite understand the concept of self-worth. So I asked Tim to explain it to me. And I remember he took me to the side of the classroom and he drew on a flip chart this picture. Smash my watch. And on this picture, he said, you know what's the problem, Steve, as I see it? So much of the society we live in, so much of the education our children get, so much of the way we evaluate people in business is based on self-confidence, and it's not the same as self-worth. Self-confidence and self-worth are different things. And this is how he explained it. He said, imagine you split yourself into 2 people, and on one side you have who you are, and on the other person you have what you do. So one part is who you believe you are, your beliefs about yourself, and the other side is observable behaviors. It's, are you good at tennis, are you bad at tennis? Are you good at mathematics, are you bad at mathematics? It's your behaviors, it's your performance, it's things you can see. Self-worth is about who you believe you are, and it's connected to those beliefs. Self-confidence, which is an overrated concept in our society, is connected to what you do. And then he said something that sounded really strange to me until I understood it. It doesn't matter, Steve, if you have low self-confidence in the world, as long as you have high self-worth, because actually confidence isn't important. So I asked him to explain. And he said, well, if you value yourself for who you are, then first of all, you're going to be realistic about what you're good at and what you're not good at. So you're not going to boast. You know, sometimes you hear people telling you how good they are, how much money they earn, how big their car is. This is not self-worth. This is overconfidence trying to compensate for low self-worth. Because if you genuinely value yourself, you don't need to tell anyone else how good you are, because you feel it inside. And then he said also, let's take this example. So let's imagine you ask me now to go down to Palanga, get in a boat, and sail up to Stockholm on my own in a sailing boat. And you ask me on a scale of 1 to 10 how confident I am to do that. 0.005 out of 10. I don't know how to sail. I have no idea how to manage the oceans. There might be a small chance that the wind would accidentally blow me in the right direction, but my confidence at a 10 is below 1. So what? I'm still very happy with who I am. Didn't used to be, by the way. When I came out of university, when I was 21 years old, I had very, very low self-worth. But I decided to change it. So everything I'm talking to you about works. I know it works because I've shared it with thousands of people, but probably my best measure is I've shared it with myself. Then you say, okay, and I say, okay, I'm curious about that. How long does it take to become a really good sailor? How long would it take to teach me? About a year. Okay, teach me. So I become a really good sailor. And then in a year's time, you say, how confident are you, Steve? What is your self-confidence to sail from Palanga to Stockholm? 8 out of 10. So what? It's kind of nice. I've learned something new. And of course, I've got some value out of that. It's not quite as black and white as this. But actually, if I'm happy with who I am today, I don't need to prove anything to anyone. Because I have all the proof I need right here inside my own head. And like I said, I don't think I'm better than anyone else. I think I'm as good as, because I think everyone else is fantastic too. Yeah, this is regard for others. So your self-worth gives you peace. It gives you a sense of being humble. It gives you your foundation in life. And all it is the beliefs that you have about yourself. I think we have to be careful as well what we're teaching our children. Because I saw a professor of happiness, which has just got to be the best job title in the world, right? This is the job title. Professor Robert Holden, who's a professor in London. And I went to see him at a conference 2-3 years ago, maybe more. And he is specialized in dedicating his career in psychology to what makes people happy. And he said, imagine that you have a genie. A magic genie comes out of a bottle. And the genie is about to give you a series of choices. But you can't have both. You can only have one of these choices in each pair. Which one do you take? Do you take wealth or do you take happiness? Because it's not the same, is it? There are some people that have wealth and are happy. There are many people that have wealth and are just not happy. So which one is most important? And which one are we teaching our children is most important? Do you take success or do you take happiness? Because that's not the same thing, is it? Depends how you define success, but success is no guarantee of happiness. Which one do you take? And which one are we teaching our children is most important? Do you take fame or happiness? I'm talking X Factor. Are we teaching our young people that if you win something like the X Factor, you're going to get happiness? Because there's no guarantee there, you see. They don't go together. And what happens after X Factor is you maybe get a little bit of fame for 1 year, and then you get forgotten. And nobody wants to take photographs of you anymore. And you're not over all the newspapers. What happens then if your happiness was dependent on that fame? I guess you're going to be unhappy. Do you want status or happiness? Of course, there is no such thing as status in Lithuania, right? Just like my country, we don't have status. Of course, I'm being ironic. Does it bring you happiness? No psychological evidence for that. The big car, the expensive clothes, the people you hang out with, the restaurant you go to, make you happier? No, not really. How about attractiveness or happiness? Because we're living in a world where more and more money is being spent every year on changing the way we look physically. More and more money is spent on cosmetic surgery. People are going to extreme lengths now to have their bodies changed. The cosmetic industry is the biggest industry in the world. Anti-aging. Everyone wants to look younger. Yeah, it's important to be comfortable with how you look, but focusing so much attention on how you look and less on who you are inside and how you feel inside, is that going to bring you happiness? So I think there's an important list here because, you see, I see happiness as more important than all of these things. Then what is society teaching the children of tomorrow that is important? What does the media teach us? What does TV teach us that is important? They're not the same thing, are they? If no one is going to re-educate our children to help them, no one else is going to re-educate our children to help them focus on what is important, then I guess it's down to you guys. Until you agree to like yourself, you will not like your life. You will not enjoy your life. This is a quote from Professor Robert Holden. What he's saying here is exactly what I'm saying. Until you've developed your self-worth and you're happy with who you are, don't expect to thoroughly enjoy your life. Yeah? Where does it come from? Our self-worth comes from our childhood, because you see, as children, if we take a brain scan of the part of the brain which is responsible for our beliefs, it's pretty empty when we're born. There are no beliefs formed. So what happens is, we're each given, when we have a child, the gift of a blank slate. And a child, because it's a child, is dependent on feedback from adults especially. Also other children, but it's mainly going to be mommy and daddy and the teachers that child first encounters in its first few years of life that has the biggest impact on the beliefs that child forms about itself, or him or herself. So we need to be really careful what type of feedback, because if we only ever praise a child when he gets an A grade, and we don't give him any attention or focus when he gets a D grade, are we focusing on growing that child's confidence but forgetting his self-worth? Are we giving this child a message? So, little Thomas, you're great when you get an A grade, but you're useless when you get a D grade. Because a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old or an 8-year-old is going to confuse these two things. And all a child wants is positive attention. So if you spend time with your child and praise them when they do well, and you ignore them when they don't do well, they're getting a belief, in order to be loved in my life, in order to be respected, I need to do well. It's dependent on what I do. It's not about who I am. So we have to be very careful. I'm not saying exam passes, I'm not saying grades are not important, but do we give praise to the child just for who they are, with no agenda? Thomas, I love you because you're unique and you're Thomas, not because you got an A grade, just because I'm your father and I love you for who you are, or your teacher, or whoever it is it might be. What happens as adults is we try to cope with this, and we develop something that psychologists call conditions of worth. I'm okay as long as. So we have to have conditions met in order for ourselves to feel okay. Some common ones here. I'm okay as long as I'm perfect. Ain't gonna make you happy. You see, perfection doesn't exist. And striving perfection is striving for misery. So if you have a need to be perfect in order to feel okay about yourself, dump it, leave it here. Don't take it with you back into the world, because it's never gonna bring you happiness. How about I'm okay because I do my best? Isn't that a better belief to have about ourselves? Sometimes you have people, I'm okay as long as I help others. You see, there's a big difference between I want to help somebody else, which is really healthy, and I need to help somebody else in order to feel needed, so I feel okay about myself. So typically, if your respect for others is high, and your respect for yourself is low, not only do you want to help others, but you often need to help others. And the way we can tell the difference is when you offer to help someone else and they politely say no, you don't have any emotional reaction to that, because you don't need to help them. You were just asking. If you get offended, if you feel an emotional reaction when somebody rejects your help in a polite way, then actually you are offering the help to feel needed, not to do an altruistic act in order to help another. And all that is your respect for others and your self-worth are out of balance. What I see so often here in Lithuania with men, I'm okay as long as I'm strong. And it's understandable. Maybe it came from a post-Soviet upbringing. I'm okay as long as I don't show my emotions. If I'm a leader, I have to be strong. I always have to be right. I can never show any weakness. Why? Isn't there strength in being honest and open about your emotions, and saying sometimes when you're vulnerable, saying sometimes when you're having a bad day? Why do you have to be strong? What is strong? Strong is honest and open, as I see it. It's just a different definition of strong, right? The last one is really quite concerning, because as we already heard from Rolanda earlier, we have to be careful we're not growing up in a world where we're teaching our children and ourselves that they can be busy all the time. Because it's possible to be busy all the time now, because we have smartphones and computers. So we never need to not be busy. It starts in schools and then it translates into work. So you're answering your emails while you're lying on Palanga Beach, and you're sleeping with your phone at the side of your bed, so you're always on call. You see, we have to be careful that we don't create a generation of young people whose identity is in their busyness. It's okay to be busy sometimes if it has a purpose and it's connected to your values. But I believe a lot of people are being busy because it's easy to be busy and they don't now know how not to be. And it can be sometimes scary to have moments where you have time to think about yourself, particularly if you have no self-worth. So it's easier to avoid that and just keep being busy. Here's a typical life story of someone developed in a Eastern society who's coming out of the education system into the busy world of work. Birth, childhood, school, work. Busy, 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 busy. Friends. Busy, 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 busy. Family. Busy, 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 busy. Holiday. Busy, 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 busy. Retirement. Dead. Kind of scary, isn't it? But there's a serious message here that we have to be careful to be more mindful and really notice the true value that each day brings, because being busy could just be avoiding the reality. How about this? How about I'm okay because I'm me? See, if I had a gift that I could give to every person in this world, which I think would make the world a much safer and happier place, it would be to have that belief. I don't need to prove anything to anyone. I don't need to show I'm better than others. I don't need to kill my competition. I don't need to have the big car. I don't need to have the status. I don't need to spend lots of money on expensive clothes in order to feel okay about myself, because actually I'm okay because I'm me. You know, I do an activity on most of my training courses. Oops. It's called I Like Me. And I ask normally senior level business people to stand up and take 7 to 10 minutes to talk about why they value themselves as a person. From the heart. Not a business presentation, no slides. I give them a night to prepare this. And you would not believe how nervous senior business people and chief executives can be with such a simple task. Some people even refuse to do it. And they say to me things like, well, Steve, I can't stand up and say why I value myself. We don't do that in Lithuania. It's not part of our culture. I've never been told what's good about me, so I don't do it here. And when I do it in the UK, we don't do that in the UK. It's not part of our culture. We don't do it here. And when I do it in Denmark, we don't do that in Denmark. It's not part of our culture. When I do it in Dubai, I was in Dubai recently. We don't do that in Dubai. It's not part of our culture. We don't do that. We'll do it in China. I tried some Chinese guys. What'd you do? I don't do that. We don't do that in China. It's not part. So I haven't yet discovered any part of the world where it's part of the culture. I don't care. You see, I'm not a sociologist. I'm a psychologist. And I know what creating positive beliefs about yourself can give you. And where do those positive beliefs come from? They come from your self-talk if you didn't get the perfect set already. So if you didn't get the perfect feedback from your parents, from your teachers, from your childhood, it's not too late to change it. Of course, that would be the place to start, because then we don't have to spend so much time helping people to grow a sense of value of themselves. But if you're sat there now thinking, I don't have that, it's just a belief. So why not choose to start to focus more on what's right about you rather than what's wrong with you? Why not choose to embrace the way you look in the mirror and focus on the fact, okay, you might not believe you have the perfect legs, but actually, I love my blue eyes and always have done. Or whatever else it is that you like and are proud of about yourself. See, the more you focus on that, the more you start to form a belief set that you're okay. And the more you believe you're okay, the more relaxed and happy you become in this world. That's not a bad deal, is it? Kind of makes sense to me. We have to be very careful with the feedback culture that we create. You see, there's only 4 types of feedback we can give from one human to another or to ourselves. Because who's the person you speak to most in your life? It's you. It's called your self-talk. You're constantly having a dialogue in your rational brain, and a lot of that dialogue will be about you. You see, and if you imagine your self-worth is like a bank account, a -10 is when you or someone else is critical of who you are. They don't often say it, but they might imply that you're stupid, that you're useless. -10s are like poison. They are toxic. They're like a virus in society. Because if you allow them and they spread, don't be surprised if you have a very unhappy, very low self-worth society. -10s have no place in this world. And it is never acceptable to criticize someone for who they are. If we need to give negative feedback, it should be negative conditional, specifically connected to what they do. This is okay as long as we do it constructively, because it's not about who the person is, it's about what they've done. And sometimes people do good things, sometimes. So I'm not saying you should go and lie to your children and tell them they've done a good piece of work if it's a bad piece of work. There's no need for that. You can be honest about their homework and tell them that there were some things that need to improve, and at the same time, you can actually give them a +10 and tell them some qualities you like about them as a person. Because who they are is not what they do. Self-worth is not self-confidence. It's not the same thing, you see. But we think it is, and we confuse it in society. If we praise someone for what they've done, it's a +2. But if we want to have the biggest emotional impact, if we want to talk to people's elephants, the emotional brain, then we have to be able to give +10s. It's positive praise for who the person is. And just like a -10 is like a virus, a +10 is like giving someone the most beautiful gift in the world. How often do you tell your husband, tell your wife that you love them unconditionally? There's no agenda here. You're not trying to manipulate. How often through your behaviors, to your gestures, do you make it clear to your friends, to your family, to your children that you're working with, that you value them for who they are? And it might be things like, hey Thomas, you know, it was fantastic to do this activity with you today. I just love your enthusiasm and I love your zest for life. These are +10s. They're not just about what he did. They are universal qualities. Yeah? You see, most companies and organizations find it hard to accept this until they try it. Because if we listen to what society tells us, we're given a message that people are bad, right? You don't really hear headlines on the newspapers telling you about how wonderful people are in the world and what a wonderful job Save the Children are doing. This is not the front page of the newspaper, is it? It's like another set of Islamic tourists killed some more people. This pop star is having an affair and cheating on his wife again. These are the headlines that we're fed. I ban the media from my life. I don't read the news because it's biased, emotional, negative blackmail if you read it, because they make the news really dramatic as well. So if you look or listen to a typical hour of news, it's kind of 98% the world is a terrible place and bad things are happening. Maybe 2% at the end, we decided we should say something nice, so we put one little funny thing in at the end. But that's not a true representation of the world. So we actually have to actively manage in our lives the feedback we let in to ourselves from the outside world and from our own head, and the feedback we give to others. And here's the really good news. An economist called Professor Richard Layard from the London School of Economics was commissioned by the UK government some years ago to study happiness. An economist studying happiness. Stranger things could happen, right? And what he found was increased wealth based on economic theory doesn't make people happier. It does up to a certain level. So if you don't have money for food, if you don't have money for a safe home, if you're given money, you get happier because your core emotional needs, your security is met. But once you get to a certain level of wealth, the interesting thing is, the more you increase people's wealth, the more their happiness goes down. The officially unhappiest countries in the world, with the highest levels of depression, suicide, and mental illness, are the richest ones. And it's not just the richest countries, it's the richest people in the richest countries that have the highest levels of psychological bad health. Interesting, isn't it? So Professor Layard, he really thought, well, what does bring human happiness? And he measured this on a scientific level, because one of the ways we can measure how happy we feel is by the level of serotonin in our bloodstream. Serotonin is one of the many hormones associated with feelings of happiness. And one thing he consistently found increases your own serotonin level and helps you to feel happier is giving an act of kindness to another person. Isn't it mysterious that human beings are made that way? We are evolutionarily evolved. We're genetically programmed to feel good when we give an act of kindness or a compliment or a +10 to another human, as long as we mean it and as long as it's authentic. So if you want to get happier, go and give more +10s to people and tell them why you care about them and compliment them from the heart on why you value them as people, and your own life becomes happier. Trust me, I've tried it, and it works. It's the best feeling in the world. I'm not going to have time to go through all of these in detail, but I put these up because Raza likes them, actually. But I think they're actually very useful for everyone, because there are different types of belief we can have about ourselves, and we can understand it in different categories. So, typical signs that your self-worth isn't as healthy as it could be. You might feel unattractive sometimes and be overly critical of your appearance. You might have too much self-blame. You might have an inferiority complex, so you over-compare yourself to others. Yeah? This becomes an obsession with some people. I don't have it, she has it, I want it, and I'm not happy until I have what she wants, and I want bigger, and I want better. Needing too much approval. We all need a certain level of attention, but you know that person that's seeking it too much? That's a sign of low self-worth. Self-acceptance, clarity on your identity. Victimitis. This is a word that I invented myself. You see, I think we are seeing an epidemic of victimitis in the world, where people are more and more looking to blame other people. It's not my fault, it's the government's fault. It's not my fault, it's their fault. But actually, people with high self-worth, they don't look to blame. If they're unhappy with something, they focus on changing it, not blaming other people. You get victimitis in teams as well, where somebody doesn't like another team member, but they don't go and speak to them directly. Oh no. They go and moan and complain to another team member. Yeah? So they don't solve the problem, they just spread the negativity around the team. Typically, people with lower self-worth, they get victimitis. Just want to leave you on this topic with a really powerful definition. Well, I believe it, but I wrote it, so I'm biased. But true self-worth is not about thinking you are perfect or better than others. It is about having a sense of comfort with who you are. It's about being humble. It is recognizing with pride your strengths and being realistic and at ease with your weaknesses. At a deeper subconscious level, true self-worth is an integrated belief of feeling I am okay because I am me. Kind of powerful, right? And all that is based on the feedback that you choose to allow into your life and the beliefs that you choose to form. Notice I say choice, because you always have a choice, but a child doesn't have a choice, because a child doesn't know this stuff. So I think we have a responsibility to make sure we get the feedback right with children, because then we can give them one of the most precious gifts that will benefit them and society, a sense of high self-worth. Thank you.